Mhm. Hey guys, welcome, welcome, welcome. I am Kari the Mortician, and today we're going to chat about conjoined twins. After the recent death of Lori and George Chappelle out in Pennsylvania, I got so many emails from you guys about their death, but not so much their death, like how are they getting cared for? What's going to happen? So, the pool of embalmers that have actually ever cared for conjoined twins is going to be microscopically small. So, this is very hypothesized what would happen. And I actually brought this up to the class I teach at a mortuary school just to see kind of some of their thoughts. And they thought of things that I hadn't thought of. So that's one thing I love is the perspective of students. They are going to help you look at things in ways that when you've been in the business for a long time, maybe you don't look at them that way. So we've got these conjoined twins. If you pull up a picture of them, they are conjoined at the face. I can't tell fully if the one twin has a fully formed face under because you really only see them from one vantage point in almost every photo. So some of what we discussed was also presentation and casketing and viewing and things like that. First, I'll talk about the embalming, if they were embalmed. I do not know if they were embalmed, if they were cremated. Totally gonna just guess here. Hey, Damien. Damien lives in the state they were in. Maybe you've heard more like firsthand out there, Damien, stories of these twins when they died. So they were the oldest living conjoined twins. And from what I had read, what was also unique about them is George was transgender, I believe. Don't quote me. Maybe I'm reading the wrong. Maybe I am remembering the wrong. But that I believe was part of their story from their birth. So you guys will have to correct me, and maybe I'm completely off the wall with that. Completely. But let's talk caring for them. So if I had received these two in my care, we're not gonna separate them. That's what some people said. Ooh, are you gonna separate them to embalm them? Why would we do that? They've lived together this many years together. Why would you separate them at this point? There's no need. Second, I'm gonna look at how they most naturally lay. Looking at a lot of photos of them, as I've done to try and kind of formulate an answer to this, they appear that Lori was always kind of forward facing, where George was more hidden. So I would see one, how they laid, and ask the family, how did they typically lay if they were laying? Just removal and transferring them into the care of the funeral home is going to be a challenge just because they are double wide from them laying next to each other. So I would see how they had been transported by medical teams in the past. All of these things I have done prior to their death will lead up to some great answers for the care team as they are bringing them into the care of the funeral home and placing them where they need to be, how they need to be placed. So I would look at that and I would ask some questions right up front, I believe. And once I knew how they were laying or how they would typically lay, I would probably lay them in that way to embalm. I think some of this is going to be huge trial and error. You're going to have to excuse because Mr. Eddie is going to bark probably a little during all of this. He likes to be heard. It's going to be some trial and error. I think some of this is going to would have been fascinating to see where their vasculature connected. I would go in as if I was just embalming one person, I think, first, raising the carotid, raising the jugular and injecting, and then seeing where I got distribution. You will probably end up injecting them both individually in the end, aspirating them, which is using the trocar, taking the bacteria and everything out of their abdomens and their thoracic cavities. But I think it would be interesting to see what kind of distribution you got injecting into one to see how much transferred to the other. To me, that's just science. That's the science nerd in me. I think that's interesting. And once you had thorough distribution in both, with raising as many vessels as you need to, then you're going to get them ready for viewing. One of my students, which I hadn't even thought of this, commented, well, you could have a viewing for them both ways. One where you lay them, so Lori is prominent, and one where you lay for George. I had also thought of more of a coffin style where you would turn it so it was a long way out into the room and you could approach from both sides and have them propped so that you could try to see both, depending which angle you approached. But I think it's important to recognize that both need to be visibly seen and both need to be viewable, not just, one down into a pillow and one facing up. So we talked about, having two viewings, having two opportunities for people to come in. We had discussed this in class, which was great because of transgender individuals, that you may do a viewing for the family as the birth gender, and then do a second viewing with the chosen gender so that you can kind of meet both needs if there are needs for both. And so a lot of this was just communication with the family. What does the family want? How do they want them viewed? How do they want them seen? Those kind of questions. So it was super fascinating, I think, just thinking about this, because it's not something that like 99.7% of embalmers will ever encounter. It's just not very, prevalent out in our society, but it is an interesting thing to think, how would you embalm? And to me, the answer is just like you always would. You assess the person, or in this case, people that happen to be connected, and you make a plan, and then you embalm until they have thorough distribution and preservation to the best of your ability. That's the best answer. And that's what any embalmer is going to hopefully tell you, because there shouldn't be much that's additionally different here, except that you have two humans connected to each other by one part or another. Some of the other conjoined twins that I had looked up, like Ronnie and Donnie Gallion, where they were always like their legs were kind of towards each other because they were connected in the abdomen. That would pose a much greater challenge in terms of presentation for me, because I don't know if they ever really laid down, if they were ever laying, or else you'd have these legs kind of up. So to me, that would have posed a greater challenge for the viewing area, more so than Lori and George would have. I mean, I would love to hear from the person or people that did care for any of these sets of conjoined twins, but definitely interesting posing all of that. So, hey guys, welcome. What other questions do you have for me, Kari the Mortician? There's also another news story that I think it's England or the UK's heaviest individual died yesterday or today at some point. And there is some video out about them transferring him to the funeral home. And, some people are going to be offended, I'm sure, put off by the fact that they have to use almost like a crane type, like a small crane, I don't know what that's called, with a basket with him, on a stabilizing platform to bring him out of the home. You can't bring him out the front door. It's not just simple like that when you get to people of certain sizes. And so I think that it appeared they did it the most respectful way they could. But yes, people are going to see. It's not something you can do unnoticed. at that point. And I haven't read kind of how much he did weigh and how large of a man he was, but definitely you can see where that may be a challenge to the funeral home. But the one kind of little blessing in those scenarios is they're going to be dying, and you can make some plans ahead and have kind of a plan in place for when that time comes. If you have the heaviest individual in England in your town, think over the scenario before it comes to fruition. Or if you have conjoined twins in your town that are the oldest ever living that could die, we all could die at any time, but that could be dying, and think of a plan. Think of what you're going to do beforehand. That's what I feel like I would want to be doing. Of course, you don't know if you're going to be getting the call, but yeah, would be interesting. Lisa, so would there be 2 caskets end to end? No, you really couldn't, because they're conjoined by their face. So you really just have to use a larger casket, depending on how wide of a space they take up. You would measure them just like you would if it was one individual who is larger. My ice machine is so loud. Just like you would with a larger individual, you would just measure their widest area with them laying how you would want them laying, and get a casket that was adequately sized. It's going to be longer also and wider. They appeared that one of them was not fully, they weren't, I don't know the best way to, you guys can yell at me later for using wrong terms, but normal height. They were much shorter. I believe that George was shortened and had kind of a stool that he rode around on, where Lori was had grown kind of her full height. That would have been more normal, I guess you would say. And so having the extra long casket is going to be extra for them. But you can't really do one without the other. That's just kind of how they come from manufacturers. Unless they had one specialty made, which would be really cool to have seen. So they died, Damien, at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. So they were in that area. I don't know where they were buried. I need to look even more into this. This happened about 3 weeks ago. So it's been, people that have sent me things, and I've not gone back to see if there is more information about the actual funeral. It's super fascinating, though, I think, to ponder different death scenarios and situations that we may never encounter, legalities of different things. And it's pretty amazing, because what one funeral director may encounter, another may never encounter in their career. So, hey, Diane, thank you. Thank you for finally getting to join live. That's awesome. My husband's sister was over 800 pounds when she passed. It took 12 firemen to get her out of the house and into the ambulance. Yeah, it unfortunately, you can't do that kind of a transfer with 2 people or a regular cot or anything. You need a lot of people power to make that transfer happen, and happen as respectfully and smoothly as possible. I did a video which was super controversial about caring for someone who is obese, and talking about that some of the charges are higher than a average size human. And it's not because there is a obese fee that the funeral home is penalizing, but a casket is going to be larger. More material means more money. A vault is going to be larger. More material means more money. It's just simple economics there, that when you have more of something, the cost is going to be a bit more. We don't charge per pound. We don't charge, in that way. But if we have to send 6 people to the transfer rather than 2, we may have to charge additionally for that. This is putting our staff at greater risk of back injury, all of that. And back injury in the funeral business is one of the highest careers that have that kind of injury to them because of all the lifting and motion that we do, which is crazy, but true. So think about liability that funeral homes have to carry for their staff and everything. And, that comes into play there. No, they wouldn't bend to fit in. They're connected, so you can't manipulate them any which way you want. They're in a specific, way that their bodies are. Just like someone, let's say, who has a, let's say, a muscle condition that they are bent up and crippled, or people who have arthritic backs or conditions that they're bent over. So when you lay them in the casket, they're not going, they're not laying flat. They're never going to because they're hunched. So you have to almost pull out padding to try to make an area that their body can lay into to get them lay them towards their side a little bit, kind of manipulate the bedding. You can't just bend them out flat because that's just how their body's made. Scoliosis type thing. When bodies are just in a certain way, we can't make them so that they fit a standard of what we believe they should be. Damien, what kind of new business did you start? Brenby. Yeah. So if she was cremated and she was 800 pounds, definitely it's a dangerous situation for the crematory and for the staff there. It's going to take a long, full day to cremate someone of that size. And why that might take additional time is because they also have to wait for a day that the machine is cool. So the cremator needs to be cold when they start a cremation of someone who is larger, because those retain heat so much that, like, you could leave on a Friday, come back on a Monday, and the machine is still several hundred degrees. The brick inside or the refractory material is still several hundred degrees. So you have to get that temp down low enough so when you place the individual in, they don't catch fire before you want them to, or they don't heat up before you want them to. You have to control it because body fat burns like grease and it catches fire and liquefies. That's when you get fires at crematories, because that fat can run out when it turns into liquid out in almost, it's a grease fire that can happen. So it is pretty dangerous when you're cremating someone of that size. So you have to wait several additional days till you can get the machine cooled down. Then it takes a whole day to cremate them, then process them. So it does take a little bit extra time because of some of those steps. Oh, Jennifer M. tore your rotator cuff doing a transfer last year. Definitely. Jean, I'm not sure what you are asking with that. How they position them with one facing forward and the other facing. Yeah, Karen, that's what I'm questioning, is how they faced them. If they did have him into the pillow and her up, if they tried to place them more on their side, so each one had a side. Very interesting to kind of ponder over. Awesome, Damien, a body removal service. The funeral homes do have lifts. Most of them do. Some have lifts that are built into the ceiling and you lower the straps down, raise the body, move the casket under, raise down. Some look like an engine hoist where you put straps under, hook it to it, crank it up. You can roll them around. It's kind of weird because they're like hanging with these straps and you're moving them around. So yes, funeral homes do have different lifts, but the lifts are rated like usually 900 or so pounds. But you also have to get those straps out and around the person. They're not always long enough. Think of off-weighting 800 pounds. Let's take, this gentleman's, or Brenby, I don't know, gentleman or female. Anyway, there is a family member that was a little larger, and that's a lot of weight to try and balance with a lift. It's just not always feasible. So, do all conjoined twins have a shorter life expectancy? I don't know that, not a doctor, but I believe that because of the shared internal organs and, just some of the health concerns that have come along with a lot of conjoined twins, that they most likely do. That's my guess. You guys can guess too. If conjoined twin wishes were to be cremated, would they have to be separated to fit in the retort? Great question. So they're two people. And this was something I had no idea. So I posed these questions also when I was discussing it with some people. And I said, so there's two of them. They have two birth certificates, even though they're conjoined. So then they're going to have two death certificates, correct? If they are cremated and the family signs some specific forms, they can be cremated together and have a conjoined cremation or a commingled cremation. They do not have to be separated. At least in Michigan, we can do that. Other states, I don't know every other state's laws because every state's different on all their different laws. It'd be great if they were all the same so I could tell you, across the board. But if a family signs and authorizes, then they can be cremated together as long as they fit. Mo. So you'll have to go back and watch the beginning of the video because we kind of already discussed through how to embalm, and but you would see what distribution you got with one injection site, but you're more than likely going to embalm each individual person kind of separately, even though some of it's going to be crossover. When a cremation is finished after the cool down, why wouldn't the retort be vacuumed out to ensure bodies were not mixed? Well, you can vacuum it out, but there's always transfer. 100% of the time there's transfer. 100% of the time you don't get back all of your loved one, and you don't get back there's going to be specks and flakes and stuff of other people or parts that are lost along the way. Just transferring from a bag into an urn, you lose. Just from transferring to the catch basin into the cremulator, you lose. There's just parts lost along the way. There is no way to ensure it's 100% everything. Yeah, Michelle, that is my one death care wish is that every state had the same laws. So I could, if someone asked me a question, I could respond because I would know. I don't know laws of every state. There's no way for me to know. It would be an undertaking to make some kind of a document that listed 10 different things to know for death care in every state and have them listed for every state. Like I don't even know. It's so much to it. Because you have funeral home laws, you got crematory laws, you got cemetery laws, you have laws on licensure. So let's say, in New York, you have to be licensed. I have to have a licensed funeral director on a transfer. You have to have a licensed funeral director take the deceased to the crematory. You have to have, like in Indiana, a licensed funeral director take cremated remains to the cemetery, where in Michigan, the family can take them to the cemetery on their own. Every state, different laws all across the board. So there's Eddie. He likes to tell us when people are, living their lives outside of the house. Hey, buddy, come here. Come here. Come here. He's so big, you guys. Like, he was standing next to our neighbor's German Shepherd. He's taller than the German Shepherd. It's crazy. Yeah, and he likes to still eat underwear, if you're keeping track. I talked about this. So I'm on lockdown with underwear because he just likes to eat it. Today was hairbrushes. I got out of the shower, went to start getting ready, and I was like, where is my comb? Where's my brush? I had no idea. I came out all out in the living room. Yeah, he's a little trickster, and we're trying to protect him the best we can from himself, but golly, does he want to just be naughty. Do you have a catch pan for body drippings? No, we don't catch drippings. There's no drippings to be caught at all. The heat is so intense, you're not dripping. The only time that is a situation is if someone is large and they liquefy, their fat liquefies too quickly for the process. And so that's why you have to really control that cremation by keeping it cool in the beginning, and then you turn the machine off, and then let the body reduce down to 50% of their weight, gauging it, eyeballing it, and then you turn it back on to complete the process. So there's very specific ways. It's very, I guess, scientific as to how they direct you to do cremations when you have someone who is larger. How about caskets? Do they have a catch pan for? No, there's no catch pan. You're in a sealed or in a box. It's like a greenhouse. The body liquefies, it evaporates up, rains down, liquid. It's just that process continues. It's like a greenhouse. That's the best way to explain it. You evaporate, then you drip down. Then you evaporate, then you drip down. Doesn't happen every single time, but it does happen. Yeah, Marie, we got a dog, Mr. Eddie, which I didn't even realize Mr. Ed. It was about a month in on I said it that way, and I was like, oh, Mr. Ed. Didn't even think of that. But his name is Edward, and he is a Bernedoodle, and I'm hoping he'll be a therapy dog I can take with me to the funeral home if he can stop eating underwear and all sorts of weird things. But that's a Bernese mountain dog thing, I'm told, is they like to move shoes. They like to snag clothing. They just like to be naughty. And that's him. Oh, yay. Julie, yay for your granddaughter. Where'd she go to school? That's awesome. That's really cool. Come here. He's chilling right now. We've been playing outside for a while. My grandson's casket is cardboard bottom wrapped around of plastic for being placed inside of his crypt. Yeah, so they have like trays for mausoleum crypts that are plastic that go under them to try to keep, if there is any leaking, to keep it from running out of the mausoleum crypt space. They also have plastic bags, casket bags that they will use as well. I actually have 2-minute videos coming up on those. So, and mausoleum beads, which are the beads that go in that you can roll the casket easier across into it. So there are items that exist, especially if the climate and the scenario kind of leads to more moisture, or there's not as good a ventilation built into the mausoleum, you may get more leaking situations. So people who are running these places kind of know what works best in their locations. A lot of mausoleums require that the individual is embalmed. That is their requirement. So yeah. Oh, Bryant, thank you. Happy early Mother's Day to me. Yeah, make sure you love on all the moms out there. Moms who are childless even. Just because maybe a baby died or a child died doesn't mean they're no longer a mama. They're still a mama. Hey, Dana. Oh, Vincennes University. Nice. And I've got a drippy nose. Sorry. If one conjoined twin goes brain dead before the other, does the other one also die? Yeah, I don't know. I would assume because of how they're connected and what they're connected by, that's going to determine it. Or if one dies, can they separate them at that point to save the other? So outside my realm. People are already dead when they come to me in the preparation room. So I don't know any of that part of it, unfortunately. So, guys, all right. Well, it's Friday. Happy Friday. May 10th here. Throw questions at me. If you guys see stories you want to know more about, I need to do a naughty funeral director video coming up, part 3, because I've had some naughty funeral director stories sent to me. So I need to get another one of them together. You guys have requested some beer with the boys, so I need to get some of those. I'm going to try and start having watch on Wednesday afternoons early evening, some more live videos where I am interviewing somebody live. So you can ask questions like you're doing today and post in the chat while I'm interviewing someone, and we get to know different areas within the funeral business, people who do different things within the funeral business, try to satiate your curiosity for all things death care. So hopefully get Mr. Ed some edible panties. He could start his own business on crotchless panties, I keep saying, because I go to put on like shorts and they're skirts now because he rips the whole center out of them. Clean, dirty, it doesn't matter. He just does. And it's only mine. He just loves his mama. Bless his heart. Yeah, he's a ding dong. He won't stand up right now. And come over here so I can show him to you guys. Here's a good little picture. Can you guys see his little picture? There's his little picture. Yeah, so he's a squishy little fluff ball, and he's a great dog. He's the biggest lover, and he just wants to love on you. Oh, so aggressively love on you, which is great. So he's 7 months now. 7 months. Yeah, he's not dirty in a bad way, though. That's what he does. That's what he does. So, well, thank you guys. Happy Mother's Day to all of you out there and your mamas and grandmas and aunts and women that are special in your lives, because it's not always just a mom that mothers you. So a dog is a dog, of course. Yeah, right? Dude. Yeah. On that note, see you guys later. Bye.